Hey guys, it's Brian with Retired at 40. I'm hoping that I can make a real quick video for you because I've found my new obsession for the week. While we've been foraging for different things in the fall time, we found these wild pear trees at this park. You've maybe seen us do a couple videos now with this same tree, but these trees are just loaded with wild pears. Bags and bags and bags, and it's just like an endless supply. So today I'm gonna freeze dry wild pears. So this is my first experience with wild pears, and they're actually very small, and they're really hard. So I'm gonna pick a bunch of these and fill up our bags, and we're gonna take them home and process them. I'm gonna show you how to get some use out of these. This thing has been instrumental in our pear picking. This is actually just meant for pears and apples. It allows you to get way high up on the tree. This is the very definition of organic. It doesn't get any more organic than that. That was a major haul. I'm pretty sure we've got about 100 pounds. Which means we have some major pear processing to do, but it's actually not as hard as you would think it would be. So these pears over time will actually start to ripen, and they will get a little bit softer, but they're still harder than like a store-bought pear would be. So the easiest way to process these, so really simple, just take the top with the stem, and then any just little imperfections, sometimes they get bruises from hitting the ground and stuff like that, right into the pot. Because after we get these processed, we're gonna boil all of these together, and that'll soften them up a whole bunch. And I'm doing a huge amount of pears today, so I got the biggest saucepan that I possibly could. We got one full pot and a whole bunch of pears left. So I'm thinking it's probably gonna take me like 3 times, cooking these 3 times. So I've got 4 trays to fill. And if you've watched my videos before, you know I like to try a whole bunch of different ways before I freeze dry. And if you haven't watched my videos before, then you need to subscribe right now. So this first tray, I'm just gonna do raw wild pears. So for the raw pears, I'm just gonna take the stem off. I'm gonna take the bottom off, and then we're just gonna core it like we would a store-bought pear and try and get all those seeds and the really tough parts out. A wild pear it's quite a bit tougher than a store-bought pear, but I think that it'll actually make a nice snack after it's freeze-dried. So you'll notice as these are sitting here, they're kind of browning up, and there's quite a few things that will do that. Avocados and apples and pears, obviously. You can stop all that if you just want to dip them in lemon water. It's just a little bit of lemon juice just dipped in water. A lot of people get worked up about it. I don't usually worry about it. It's purely cosmetic for the most part. Sometimes avocados, it'll affect the taste a little bit, but only when you rehydrate them. But I think for today, I'm not gonna dip mine in lemon water, and we'll just have to see if it affects the taste or the texture or anything. Also, make sure that you wash these. I know that you already know this, but if I don't say it, there's always gonna be one person in the comments that says,
"Oh, you need to wash these."
And then they'll promptly give me a thumbs down. But I know it's not you guys, it's that other person that we don't talk about. Let's go to the deep freeze. For the second and third and fourth trays, we're gonna need these to be nice and soft. So the next thing we're gonna do is fill this up with water, and we're gonna boil it. We're gonna do 30 to 45 minutes of boiling on the stove with these. So you'll definitely know if these pears are done because they will be real soft. Pretty much so soft that you can just cut right through the core if you wanted to. I try and take the very inside of the core off because it is a little chewy, I guess, compared to the rest of it, but I'm just gonna cut mine into probably just about quarters, I would say, for most of them. Some of the bigger ones might be a little bit more than that. So tray number 2 is just gonna be the boiled pears, just plain quartered or into sixth. The interesting thing about wild pears is after you boil them, it actually takes a lot of the bitterness out of them. They're not real sweet like a store-bought pear would be, but you still definitely get that pear flavor. Now tray number 3 So I've noticed kind of a concern that I have as I'm cutting all these up, and that's after these are boiled, they kind of make almost like a syrup. And I'm hoping that's not going to do what syrup normally does in the freeze dryer, which is make a big mess because it kind of explodes. But more on that later. So for this last tray, we're actually just going to go right into the Vitamix container because I'm going to make a pear sauce. So kind of what I'm going for is a pear sauce that would be similar to an applesauce, except for obviously with pears. This should be real interesting to see what happens when this actually dehydrates. This mostly consists of water. So if you're a HARVESTRIGHT naysayer, or you just don't think it's worth the money, this one little thing right here should convince you. This is sitting on a scale. This is 1 tray out of 4. I have a medium-sized HARVESTRIGHT. And that's basically 6 pounds of pears just in 1 tray. So all 4 trays are in the deep freeze. Everything looks good. We're gonna pop this in the freeze dryer. All right, so I am going to add about 4 hours onto the cycle because the pear sauce is it's neither a liquid nor a non-liquid. So just to be safe, I think I'm gonna add about 4 hours onto the total. And I'll see you when it's done. Hey, welcome back. It's been 50 hours. And with any luck, we've got some freeze-dried wild pears in all types of different ways. So here's our finished product. These would be the raw ones. And then these two you can tell are boiled because they did start to change color a little bit. These have the spices on them. These are without. And then our pear sauce is really interesting. So if you remember from earlier, I was kind of concerned about the syrup type stuff that was forming on these when I was cutting them. And it all seemed to freeze dry. I would assume it's just kind of a sugary water, but it did something kind of strange. So if I get close up on these, you can kind of almost see, it almost looks like little zits or something. Maybe zits aren't the best description for it, but they're almost like a crystal that's formed on there. And they taste really good. I really like the pears. And between the boiled ones and the not boiled ones, it's really hard to tell the difference. The ones that were raw, the texture is actually a little bit more like, it's a little bit more like the banana is. It's a little bit more crunchy. You can tell the boiled, just the texture is a little softer. But with the spices, it really adds exactly what it needs. And the cinnamon on the pears is exactly what it needs. All right, let's check out this pear sauce last. And it freeze dried in 1 whole tray. And it looks like I'm gonna have to pry it out. A little parchment paper would go a long ways with this. So mine looks like it only ended up getting done on the very outside. So if you're gonna do this, I would recommend just doing 4 trays or 5 trays or whatever size freeze dryer you have. Do them all with just the sauce. Don't combine the loose pears with the sauce. So if you've been watching my videos long enough, you know that this is my favorite texture in freeze drying because this stuff will always do the best. And it just, you can powder it if you want to. Anything that has that much crunch has just a complete lack of moisture, and it always rehydrates well. And I'm assuming that this is not going to be any different than usual. And it looks exactly how you want it. And you remember this one had some turmeric and I think some cinnamon in it as well. Every time I do stuff like this, it reminds me of baby food when we had babies. And that sounds like a future video to me. Baby food, not babies. But it's good. And it turns out well. It tastes just like when we made it. So I would call everything today a success. Make sure you join me next week. We're going to do some more HARVESTRIGHT versus comparisons. In the meantime, this is Retired at 40. Remember to live life simple, and we'll catch you next week.